So again, the kind of contrast of just the glory of a moment and the reality of Gaza and the war and all that continues to go on. So there is this poem that has been making the journey from my head to my heart over and over for the last few months, written by Maya Popa, a 35-year-old poet who teaches at New York University. And she's writing about the absolute simple bliss of walking her dog in Central Park under a perfect sky of orange and pink, and the leaves kind of have that purple hue, and she's just wandering, and her mind is just idling and kind of floating, and just that joy of thoughtlessness. But the poem is really about more than that, because it's a COVID poem, and she's writing about the early days there in New York City, when in the exact place where she used to walk her dog in Central Park, they have built a hospital. They are building a hospital on the field outside my home, a field hospital, in an actual field, the great American oak on one end and the tupelo on the other. They have laid white tarp over the boggy grass and raised a series of insulated tents. It has blossomed overnight like a dark circus, machines to dehumidify the air, cots like dollhouse furniture, and intricate machines to keep alive those whose bodies are resigned to leaving. An orchestra of discipline and calculated faith, of power cords and outlets maneuvered around trees, of hoping that rain holds and spring reads the room. The human beings are desperate. They have built a house where in other days I walked my dog counting no blessing but the one I chased, who startled strangers on blankets before stretching on the grass. How happy I was, not knowing how happy. And then she goes on and talks a little bit more about walking through Central Park and the perimeter and the sky and the mind again, just the gladness of her thoughts wandering. And this poem has been with me in this season because in many ways what she has done is she has taken the classical form of a psalm and she has written a modern poem out of it. Because the classical psalm holds together praise and a plea, like a petition, like a praise, like for the grass and the sky and the dog and the human beings who are working so hard to keep one another alive, with also a plea, like a petition, like with the bodies that are about to leave, hold on. In the spring, hold back the rain because we are trying so hard to make it through. So we are, as a people, pretty comfortable with psalms of praise. You know, the church likes to sing, my Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. But the psalms that kind of cry out like, my God, why have you forsaken me? And why have you hid your face from me? You know, there's a lot in the psalms, like Psalm 88. They're just rough. They're not just like, I'm in the pit. They're like, God, you have put me in the pit. But the truth about the Psalms is there is room in there for every single human emotion. The Psalms are raw, they are ragged, they are real, they are rich. And every single emotion you can imagine, like anger and despair and fear, is right there, along with joy and delight and bliss. It's all in there. And the power of that is there's this sense that there is nothing that you can feel. It's not okay to feel, and there is nothing that you can feel that's not okay to express, and to express to God or to express at God, like God can take it, right? Like you can rail and wave your fist at God. And I have appreciated so much the work of Walter Brueggemann. Many of you know he's Old Testament Hebrew Bible scholar who has been one of the most prolific, but one of the wisest, most insightful. And he takes the Psalms and he talks about how they move like our lives through these seasons of orientation and disorientation and new orientation. So orientation is the sweet place, right? Where we're just like walking our dog and the routine of morning coffee and packing the kids' lunches, and just when life is sort of well ordered and coherent and nothing really big is happening. And a lot of times you don't really realize the joy and grace of that until you're thrust out of it and you're in your place of disorientation. So, you know, the orientation of like being on a wonderful vacation only to come home and get the diagnosis, right? Or the wonderful summer that you remember before they found the lump. or your whole team is working together in such an incredible way, and then the plant closes. Or right now, I find myself thinking about the orientation of the Obama years, just all those years when didn't it just feel like there was an adult in charge? And like you didn't really have to, like you might not have agreed with, like I think Syria, he could have been tougher on, but you felt like somebody who was really paying attention and really was giving it their best was like running the show. And like in a way, you could kind of not think about it. And now I find myself thinking of if there was one person on the planet that I would say is not a thoughtful person, it's who's going to lead the country. Like not thoughtful about thinking about how his words shape the world, right? Or how his decisions like touch people, or thoughtful like thinking about other people, right? So we've gone from some feeling of oriented to this time of disruption and disorientation. And the scriptures somehow invite us to use language. And the power of poetry is that it liberates. The power of poems, it like has evocative language like Popa did in this, this beautiful poem prayer about walking in Central Park, and it just kind of opens it up. And that kind of language invites us to kind of move from this place of disorientation to kind of sit with that, and then imagine if something by expressing language in kind of wild ways might bring us to a place of new orientation, might move us somewhere fresh and new. And Merwin wrote a poem. He wrote it in 87, and then he came back to it in 2005. W.S. Merwin was born in 1927, son of a Presbyterian minister. When he was just a 5-year-old, he was writing hymns and illustrating them for his dad. The family had no money, but he got a scholarship to Princeton, and then he came under the kind of tutelage of some very wise writers. And he went on to be a poet who wrote a lot about kind of our disconnection with the earth and from one another. And he became an ardent environmentalist as well as a Zen Buddhist later on. But he wrote this poem that again has made that journey from the head to the heart over and over and over again for me, because it's kind of like sat with me in moments where I'm in a really difficult spot and asked me, is there maybe some way by naming this that there might be something that breaks open and moves you to a new place? It's called Thanks. Listen. With the night falling, we are saying thank you. We are stopping on the bridges to bow from the railings. We are running out of the glass rooms with our mouths full of food to look at the sky and say thank you. We are standing by the water thinking it, standing by the windows looking out in our directions. Back from a series of hospitals, back from a mugging. After funerals, we are saying thank you. After the news of the dead, whether or not we knew them, we are saying thank you. Over telephones, we are saying thank you in doorways and the backs of cars and in elevators, remembering wars and the police at the door and the beatings on the stairs. We are saying thank you. In the banks, we are saying thank you. In the faces of the officials and the rich and all who will never change, we go on saying thank you, thank you. With the animals dying around us, taking our feelings, we are saying thank you. With the forest falling faster than the minutes of our lives, we are saying thank you. With the words growing out like cells of a brain, with the cities growing over us, we are saying thank you. Faster and faster, with nobody listening, we are saying thank you. Thank you. We are saying and waving, dark though it is. Merwin went on to leave behind a great body of poetry, but that wasn't all. In 1977, after, speaking out against all kinds of things and trying to get the country to move in new, fresh directions, he moved to Hawaii. And when he did that, he bought an old pineapple plantation. It was a plantation that had been so extracted and so depleted that absolutely nothing would grow. Not a palm tree, nothing native, nothing. But he had these 18 acres, and later on his wife Paula joined him in this effort. And he started planting these little palm seedlings, and nothing would grow. He would bring manure and compost. He would carry buckets of water from the sink. Slowly, these trees would begin to take shape. And when he died 5 years ago, he left behind this 18 acres that have restored rainforest 3,000 trees, over 480 varieties of palm trees. It's absolutely the place on the planet of like the most eco-diversity. And he entrusted it to the people of Hawaii and to more. And it became this place really of repair and restoration. And it was a place that reminds us, even in the disorientation and the disruption, there's a possibility of going in a fresh new way. There is never an opportunity to really go backwards. You can't go back to a place. You can't go back to years before. You can't go back and erase the years of plantation, the way people were extracted, the way their bodies were taken. You can only really go forward, right? So I'm wondering, in this moment we're in right now, if there's a place you can put whatever little palm thing you've got, and think about, in this moment, what might there be new for me? What might I find as a way of living in a new way? We are running out of the rooms, right, with our mouths full of food, looking at the sky and saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. In the faces of officials who will never change, we go on saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, dark though it may be sometimes. Amen.